Christopher Nolan's interpretation of the Odyssey is an ambitious, visually stunning epic that exceeds expectations and is easily one of the strongest contenders for Film of the Year. As with Oppenheimer, Nolan assembles an astonishing ensemble cast, creating a 3-hour showcase of some of Hollywood's finest talent. However, despite its many strengths, I believe several of Nolan's creative choices ultimately work against the film. Hi, my name's Jesse and this is the ENABLER'S Review. Nolan attempts to tell a grounded human story about war, trauma, and humanity's belief in the supernatural. That is a compelling premise in its own right. The problem is that the Odyssey is fundamentally about a mortal man challenging the gods themselves. The supernatural isn't merely decoration, it's the foundation of Homer's story. By reducing the gods to invisible forces or natural phenomena, while still retaining Cyclops, witches, sirens, Scylla, Charybdis, the Lotus Eater's element, and Helios' sacred cattle, the film feels caught between two identities. Nolan wants mythological spectacle while remaining a grounded filmmaker, and the result never fully commits to either vision. Because of this, the story loses much of its grandeur. In Homer's Odyssey, it isn't simply fighting storms or managing an unruly crew. He is defying cosmic forces and surviving the wrath of Poseidon himself. Those larger-than-life stakes are what make his journey legendary. Matt Damon's Odysseus also never truly feels like the underdog. Rather than a resourceful leader constantly overcoming impossible odds, he often comes across as someone whose poor decisions repeatedly endanger his crew. He continually chases provisions or investigates yet another island, making the disasters feel self-inflicted rather than inevitable. Ironically, Odysseus' second-in-command often feels like Homer's Odysseus rather than Odysseus himself. He is the one constant emphasizing the urgency of returning home, while Odysseus repeatedly seeks out another island, another cave, another opportunity for supplies. The Cyclops' sequence is perhaps the film's biggest missed opportunity. In Homer's version, this moment perfectly demonstrates Odysseus' intelligence. He intoxicates Polyphemus with wine, tricks him into believing his name is nobody, blinds him, and escapes with clever deception. Nolan removes almost all of these defining moments. Polyphemus barely speaks until he's blinded, then conveniently turns away from the crew to pray to Poseidon. This scene becomes a spectacle instead of a showcase of Odysseus' greatest strength, his intellect. Another casualty of Nolan's adaptation is the passage of time. In Homer's epic, every stop delays Odysseus' return home, creating constant urgency. Years slip away with Circe, Calypso, and other encounters, making his longing for Ithaca and Penelope increasingly painful. In the film, his travels feel fast-tracked, robbing the journey of its emotional weight. Circe's sequence is visually exceptional. Watching her physically reshape Odysseus' crew into animals through surreal practical effects and VFX is one of the film's standout moments and showcases Nolan's flair for horror. Yet even here, Circe loses much of her menace. Rather than imprisoning Odysseus and his men for an extended period, as she does in the poem, her threat feels brief and easily overcome. The changes surrounding Circe are equally puzzling. Hermes is omitted entirely, meaning Odysseus never receives the magical molly plant that protects him from Circe's magic. Instead, Nolan introduces a bird as the solution to escaping Circe's hold, an invention that feels far less believable than simply embracing the original mythology. The absence of the gods hurts other characters as well. Calypso never delivers a famous speech to Hermes, criticizing the male gods for condemning female deities who take mortal lovers. That exchange gives depth to both Calypso and the Olympians, while reinforcing that her island is as much a prison for her as it is for Odysseus. Throughout much of the film, Odysseus often feels like a passive participant, drifting from one monstrous island to another, while events simply happen to him instead of being driven by his own ingenuity. The omission of Achilles from the Underworld is particularly disappointing. His speech about preferring a long, ordinary life over eternal glory in war directly reinforces many of the themes Nolan appears to explore: the cost of war, the destruction of families, and the emptiness of heroic glory. Excluding him removes one of Homer's most thematic moments. Joseph's Agamemnon is similarly underwhelming. Ironically, this is one character Nolan should have just kept in the bag. Revealing and humanizing him weakens the imposing aura of the heavily armored king of the Greeks. A brief fragmented flashback depicting his death would have been far more effective. While the film's ending is emotionally satisfying, one change left me genuinely disappointed: Odysseus' scar. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus receives a scar during his youth, and his nurse Euryclea personally tends to this wound. Years later, when she recognizes that same scar upon his return to Ithaca, the moment comes full circle. It isn't merely a physical identifier, it is a deep personal reminder of his childhood, his family, and the life he lost before the Trojan War. The recognition carries tremendous emotional weight because the scar connects his past directly to his long-awaited homecoming. Nolan changes this by having Odysseus receive the scar as an adult, seemingly so it can also serve as a visual device for Antinous' flashback. While this may streamline the storyline, it cheapens one of the poem's most poignant moments. This is perhaps the clearest example of how Nolan's reinterpretation sacrifices emotional payoff. Euryclea's recognition no longer feels like the accumulation of a long bond between a nurse and the boy she raised. Instead, it becomes little more than a convenient plot device revealing Odysseus' identity. It's a subtle alteration, but one that exemplifies a recurring issue throughout the film. Changes made for cinematic efficiency often come at the expense of the emotional and thematic depth that made Homer's original so enduring. One of the film's biggest surprises is John Leguizamo, who steals nearly every scene he is in. His performance gives the Ithaca sequences emotional weight, and he brings remarkable stoicism and loyalty to the role. Even his subtle voice performance feels distinct from his usual style, making it one of the film's standout performances. Ultimately, I admire Nolan's ambition and respect what he sets out to accomplish. But again, the film repeatedly undermines itself by refusing to fully embrace its own mythology. If the audience is already expecting to believe in Cyclops, witches, sirens, Scylla, Charybdis, the lotus flower, and Helios' sacred cattle, then the gods themselves shouldn't have to be the line Nolan refuses to cross. Likewise, allowing time to pass more meaningfully would have strengthened Odysseus' longing for home and raised the emotional stakes. Nolan's reinterpretation of the Odyssey is visually and technically impressive, but many of his departures from Homer diminish the character's themes, emotional payoffs, and mythical grandeur that define the original. What do you think? Comment down below, like and subscribe. My name is Jesse, and this was the ENABLER'S Review.